Okay, Eric, do you have a Star Trek trivia for us today?
I do, yes. Let's see. This one, this one, I have no idea even what episode this is from, so I'll be curious to discuss this if this rings a bell with you guys. What cured Assistant Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford of Sakuro's disease? A. Transporters. B. Merging with the companion. I feel like that automatically has to be the right answer because it's so specific. C. Plasma ray bombardment. Or D. Warp field exposure. I think you and I have a very different opinion.
My goodness, you're trying to lose all credibility, Eric.
Welcome to a piece of the action. I'm Micah.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Greg.
And this week we're going to be looking at the board game Splendor. Splendor came out in 2014 by a designer named Marc Andre. One of the games that I personally played, I played a couple of years ago, I think at Dragonflight. From my memory of it was that it was a pretty fun game. But as usual, we will listen to what Eric and Greg have to say about it shortly. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you like hearing long-form discussions about board games and board game design and these types of reviews, please consider subscribing to us, giving us a like if you enjoyed this video, and commenting after you watch the video to explain why you think Eric and Greg are totally wrong. But let's go on now to our review of Splendor. First of all, Eric, what is the story behind the game Splendor? What is it? What is the I guess the premise of Splendor?
Yes, Eric, tell us the story of Splendor.
Yes.
I'm actually
Well,
really curious to hear this.
thousands of years ago, there was
it sounds like a
starship
Scheherazade type
that,
thing, right?
There is no story in Splendor. I think you're a gem merchant, so you're trying to sell the most gems. That's the story.
Okay, so you're just a merchant, nothing more than that.
Did they even discuss this in the rules?
I
Greg?
actually looked this up just before we did this, and there's a very small paragraph that was like, you're a merchant in the Renaissance, and you're buying mines and transportation.
Oh, you're buying
methods.
mines. Okay.
Yeah, you're using the gems to buy mines or something. It's very, very thin, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little more generally, other than the premise. Then, how does it feel to play Splendor? Do you feel like a merchant? Does it execute well?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
It doesn't. Well, the theme. Yet again, I think we have found a new low.
Yeah.
For theme. Greg, are you with me on that? I think that of all the games we've played so far, this game.
I think we hit the rock bottom as far as theme goes a while ago with probably Dominion.
No way. Dominion has. I think Dominion has as much theme as Pandemic.
You're crazy.
No, I said that in the video. I think it does.
You are absolutely crazy. But it's no. Okay. I don't. It's there's a certain point where theme gets so low where my brain just completely.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know.
Go below.
And so for me,
zero.
Splendor has gotten. And don't get me wrong, I like abstract games, so I'm not anti this. But for me, there's a certain point where the theme just becomes abstract. Mm-hmm. Splendor is at that point.
This is an abstract game.
I think of it as thematically, anyways. There's different terminology for abstract, but thematically, anyways, I think of it as an abstract theme doesn't matter game. So
that's true. The way it plays is there's two actions you can take on your turn. You can either collect 2 or 3 gems, or you can buy a card with those gems that you've collected. You've got a limit to how many gems you can have, and there's different types, and the cards have certain costs on them of like it requires 1 blue and 1 red, so one topaz, 1 ruby, whatever. And you purchase them and they go into a tableau in front of you. Basically, it's kind of a set collection game. So the cards that you get will give you discounts typically. Every so often, a card will show up that has points on it, and whoever gets to 15 points first wins.
Okay. how does it feel to play it? Does it feel anxiety-inducing? Is it relaxing? Is it strategic? Is it enjoyable? What would you say?
There is a certain enjoyment to playing simple card games, I think. Like, if I'm not going to sit down and play a big board game, I like to play trick-taking games, or just, card games with some theme to them. So this game is it's kind of along those lines. So if you want something light that's not too demanding, that is going to give you a taste of some deeper mechanics in other games, this is a good example of that. The way it feels is, it feels like on your turn you just feel like you're just deciding which cards do I want to buy. That's basically all that it's coming down to on your turn. There is some tension in the game when someone buys a card that you had your eye on, or there's something we didn't mention before. There's these nobles that if you get certain sets of cards, you'll collect the noble, and that gives you kind of a big point boost. So if you're shooting for a certain set of cards and somebody gets the one that you had your eye on earlier, there's some frustration that can come from that, but not too much, because that card is immediately replaced with something else. Cards are constantly in flux, so there's always some new plan to come up with.
Okay, but you feel like it sounds like the decision-making space is not too overwhelming there.
There are only two things to decide on your turn. Are you going to collect gems, or are you going to buy a card? That's it. And it's a very tactical game, because the cards are constantly changing. So when it's your turn, you just have to look at what's available if you're thinking about buying a card. And there are tier 1 cards, tier 2 cards, and tier 3 cards. You can buy any of them, but that is just a category of how difficult they are, kind of how hard they are to buy. So you might have your eye on like a tier 3 card that you're really wanting to get, but you need discounts to get it. So you need to buy some tier 1s and tier 2s before you can get to that tier 3 card. So there's kind of like a general strategy, but if somebody grabs that tier 3 card first, then you've got to change your plan.
You got to be pretty adaptable. Okay, Greg, what about you? Thoughts on how it feels to play Splendor?
Yes. So Splendor is an engine building game, and I think it's worth maybe defining. We use that word a lot. There's a lot of games we talked about in the past that are engine building games. And engine building games are ones where there's these goals at the end that you don't know how you're going to get there. You can't get there in the beginning. There's actions you can't take because you don't have an engine in place. In the beginning, you're doing small actions. Those small actions start to compound on top of each other until eventually you can start doing the expensive actions. So Eric talked about like level 3 cards. In the beginning, you can't even remotely touch them. You have to start with level 1 cards. You get yourself an engine together in the beginning. I consider Splendor, let me jump into a beer analogy here.
Okay.
This
will be our third or fourth for the show so far.
It's a deep subject for analogies.
Right.
But so one of the things I've always interested me is there's beers have multiple hops, there's multiple different kinds of hops. But if you wanted to be like a beer judge, for example, you would want to be able to taste the difference between the different kinds of hops. So there's actually beers out there that are like single hop. Like this is the Mosaic hop, and that's it. And a lot of times you'll just taste that just so you get used to what does the Mosaic hop taste like in isolation. Where I'm going with that is, for me, when people talk about engine building, I think of Splendor as being the absolute most stripped down engine building game I can think of. There's nothing else to it. It's very, very simple. It's just very, very simple engine building game with just a few rules. So that to me is how it feels to play.
I don't know how you could call this an engine building game, Craig. This is not an engine building game.
How would you define engine building game?
All you're doing is you're collecting cards that give you discounts for other cards. Engine building games imply like at least a couple of steps of like, okay, this is going to trigger this card and this is going to trigger that card. At least it requires some text on the cards. There's not even text on the cards. It's just you're just collecting sets of cards.
Sounds like to me you're talking about a combo game.
This is,
Talking about-
in my opinion, this is set collection and resource management.
It is.
its
No,
bare
absolutely.
minimum.
I absolutely
Engine
agree.
building.
And
I think you and I have a very different opinion of what engine building is.
well, I have the correct view of engine building, so maybe that's where.
Did
I
you
mean,
look this up? Is this what does BGG say about this? Is this
No, but,
does it say it's an engine building?
I have not looked this up recently, but I've
I
always.
would put
I'll
money
look
on
it
the
up and
fact
I'll
that
put
B-
it on the
that
screen, whatever
BGG
it
does
says.
not have engine building on the little like.
Well, I don't know that
mechanic
I don't know
mechanisms.
that BGG actually has a category called engine building. It's not really a mechanism.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a Greg
They split out mechanisms. Engine building is more of a feel.
Okay.
And to me, engine building is any time where your actions are becoming more and more powerful over the course of the game. Which is absolutely what Splendor is. I mean, I don't want to argue definitions because these are just titles and categories. But so let's forget the engine building term. If you like games where you start out with very simple actions that don't do a whole lot, and there's these really powerful actions you can't get to, and over the course of the game, those actions start to open up as
You build your way toward those actions.
You build your way using an engine-like device.
Right.
Anyways, I don't know. We can look this up later. But I've always considered Splendor to be like, if people say, "Hey, I like engine building. What's the simplest version of it?" This is the most stripped down version of an engine building game I can think of.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Obviously, Eric has a different opinion on engine building, and that's fine. Words are words after all.
So it's.
But second thing I wanted to talk about with the feel of the game, interaction, which is always something I like talking about. Splendor, I feel there's phases to it. A lot of new players, beginning players, you come into Splendor, I don't think there's a lot of interaction. It's a kind of game you can just focus on your own engine and not worry about others. Yeah, or whatever you want to call it. You just focus on that and not have to worry about what the people are doing, and you can just kind of play it multiplayer solitaire if you want. But I feel as you get better at this, you start seeing places that you need to start sabotaging other players. And there's 3 points of main. I always like to point out where the actual interaction is. In this game, your points of interaction are the cards that are on display, right? So you can see, because it's all open information, you can see what gems other people are collecting. So you can kind of figure out what cards are people going for. Is that the card I want to get? One of the other actions that we didn't bring up yet is you can reserve cards. Reserve cards means I just take this card. I can't afford it yet, but I'm taking it out of the central market and putting it in front of me. It's now my personal market, kind of. You get a gold for doing that because you're basically wasting a turn. A gold is like a wild gem. And so in the future, you can now buy it. So if you think someone's going for that card and it's a card you really want, you can choose to take it away. So there's as you get better at the game, you can start focusing, okay, what cards are people going for? That's one point of interaction. The second main point of interaction is the gems themselves you're collecting. Depending on player count, I believe in a full player count, there's 7 gems of each type. There's 5 types of gems plus 5 gold. That's actually surprisingly tight. People can hold up to 10 gems in front of them. Those stacks shrink pretty quickly, so you can just hold all the sapphires, for example. That's another point of interaction. And then nobles. Nobles are a pretty big one because you just get them for free if you just have those cards in your tableau. And you can clearly see which nobles people are kind of going for. So that kind of gives it a race feel. That's another point of interaction. But I feel those points this never gets like super interactive. This is more like I got this when you wanted it type of interaction. But as you play more, I think there is those elements of you kind of have to pay attention to what people are going for, what they're getting. I consider it, if you're playing with experienced players, I would say this like mid-weight interaction. And so there's some tension there between, is he going to get that card before I really want that card? So that's kind of how it feels to play to me.
Okay. Speaking of interaction and other players, what's the player count for Splendor?
The box says 2 to 4, and I agree with that. 2 to 4. I think
well at all of those.
Yeah, I think 3 and 4 is probably a little better than 2, but I would play it.
I think it works good at 2.
Yeah, it works fine at 2 though.
And what's the run time?
30 minutes, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, okay, well, let's talk a little bit then about some of the strategies that you guys have found or that you might try to employ going into a game of Splendor if you've never played before. What are, you guys have any tips or tricks or things to think about? Greg, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say here. Eric said it was a tactical game. I do agree with that. Um, I do think there's small doses of strategy here, though. There are some long-term goals that you can set up for yourself, in particular with the nobles. So when I see a new game of Splendor, the first thing I take note of is the nobles, and those are random. You get from a set. I try to find out, well, which ones share the most colors. Like, okay, 3 of these nobles need black, so let me focus my game on picking up black. Onyx, I think they are, so that I have multiple options for my nobles. So that's one small tip, I think, is shared colors of the nobles. Also, level 3 cards, you can almost treat those as nobles. Nobles are 3 points, but a lot of the tier 3 cards are 3 points. I think they'll even go more than that. And those stick around for a while because it takes a while before people can start to afford them. So you can even make those some long-term strategies. Like, these are the cards that I'm going for. So that would give me some direction as to which way I want to build my tableau up into.
Is there any value to the nobles apart from their point value?
No, they don't give you any discounts like the other cards do. The only value to the
They're
nobles
just
really is,
expensive gems.
they are expensive. They're just
free.
points. They're free.
They-
They don't.
yeah.
As long as you meet the requirements on the turn, you just get them.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you don't have to spend any turns getting them, which is nice. All they say is, hey, do you have, for example, it could say, if you have 4 rubies and 4 onyx in your tableau, you have those cards, they just come to you and you get 3 points.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty nice. And finally, and I talked about this with how it feels, I think an important step forward from getting away from being a new player at this game is learning to pay attention to what other players are doing. So you don't get your cards that you were going for just end up becoming taken from underneath your nose. Learning to pay attention to what other people are doing, I think, is a big deal. But that's some low-level strategy tips, I think.
Okay, but it sounds like it's not a super heavy game, so that.
No, I wouldn't really call this meaty, no, by any
Right.
means.
Okay, what about you, Eric? Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to second what Greg said about look at those nobles and find ones that share colors, and then start down a path that incorporates discounts from those colors. I will add that I think you want to live in the tier 1 and tier 2 range. You can win the game just on tier 1 and tier 2. Don't even try for tier 3. Let tier 3 happen on its own, kind of. Just because by the time, it might not seem like you're winning because the points are in the tier 2 and tier 3 and the nobles, but the tier 1 cards are easy to get. And so by the time you've accumulated a bunch of tier 1 cards, you're going to have so many discounts that you can afford things faster than anybody else, and you're going to just super catch up from anybody who's just, all they've been doing is collecting gems, trying to afford that one tier 3 card or even a tier 2 card. Just live in tier 1 for a while and then get a bunch of discounts and then get a few tier 2s. The nice thing about the noble thing is that it happens automatically. So, and it's like a super powerful, doesn't cost an action tier 3 card. So just let that happen naturally, and collect your points here and there from the random points that show up. I would also say always don't just take gems randomly. Take gems for a purpose. So don't be like, well, I'll probably use some blues and some reds later, so I'll just take those. No, take something with something in mind.
Okay.
I want to add in there, that rings a bell with something I did want to bring up about the strategy. Yeah, I agree 100% with Eric. It's interesting because, yeah, you get more points with even the tier 3 cards, but they're still they only give you 1 discount. All the cards in that market give you only 1 discount. So getting a card off the tier 1 is the equivalent discount as given a tier 2 or 3. So, yeah, I agree. In the beginning, just you're going to make me feel hesitant to say engine this whole review. 'Cause I'm saying like
Just
use
say
the,
it. Just
use the tier 1 cards to get your engine going. That's what I want to say. Now I'm like wondering if I'm saying that correctly. But anyways, tier 1 is just purely for your engine, just getting that going. Yeah, that I agree 100% with Eric with that. Just focus on that. As with most engine building games, you don't even want to worry about points until you get your engine going, right? So that's yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and talk then about the good and the bad for Splendor. First of all, we'll talk about what Splendor does well. Greg, you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think its biggest pro is that it's so easy to teach. The rules are very simple. It's a quick game. It's easy to pick up. So it's a lightweight game, and there's enough, and it's not like super random. I mean, there's enough for the weight. There's enough meat here to keep it interesting throughout the game. I'm never bored when I play. It moves fast. I mean, turns are quick, so that's good. And I will point out, since I always like tactile components, the poker chips in this game are actually pretty nice. They're like weighted poker chips with metal slugs in them. I've heard some of the newer editions don't have the metal slugs in them anymore. Not that it's a big deal, but I do like the weight of the it feels good collecting gems, so I will point that out. Those are probably my pros.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of what I seem to remember from when I played it. That it just sort of was very. It was just to me enjoyable to play because it felt good. It was easy. It went fast, and I wasn't bored during it. So not that it was the most deep thing out there, but it was easy to just sort of pick up and go with. Was what I.
What would you rate it, Greg?
Oh, well, I mean, I usually give that at the end, but I give this game a 6. I give it a 6.
Okay.
Which is right around that. Well, we'll get into the negatives later, but it's
Sure.
right around that range
Oh, yeah.
of like, if I owned it, I would pull it out from time to time, but it's not something I'm like dying to play,
Yeah.
But we'll talk about why and the negatives.
Sure.
All right, Eric. What about you? What did it do well?
Yeah, I think there's a nice balance of tactics and strategy here for the weight of the game. I think that it balances those two things pretty nicely. It's also really easy to learn, really easy to play. So it's a really nice, super light intro to set collection and resource management.
Which I agree, it does do that too. I agree, along with the engine building.
Well, then what about what it did not do well? Eric, what could it have improved on?
So it's pretty simple for me. It's just not interesting enough for me. There's just not enough going on in the game to keep me very interested in it. If you're into this kind of let's sit down and play a little card game about collecting cards and resource management stuff like that, I would say Century Spice Road is where it's at. It's got a ton of expansions to go with it, or variants, I should say. So you get a lot more bang for your buck as far as that's concerned. This would be good for someone who's never played set collection or resource management kind of game to dip their toes in. But it's just not interesting enough for me. And in addition to that, the thing that makes this in the end not a game that I would recommend necessarily is that I think that it's too long to be a filler. So I don't know if anybody else has had this problem, but like when we're waiting around for the final person to show up back when we could play board games together in person, when we're waiting around for that person to show up and we're like, well, let's play a filler game and we'll break something out. And then it always ends up that like the person shows up and they've got to wait around for 15, 20, 30 minutes for the game to be done. Well, this is one of those games that's going to do that to you, where you're going to break this out and say, let's just play a little light game of Splendor. And it's going to go longer than you think. So I think it's just too long to merit a play for the depth that it gives you, that it offers.
Would this game rate higher if it was, say, a 15-minute game instead of what'd you say, a 30-minute game?
Yeah, somewhat slightly. I've got now that we're kicking stuff off of our list, I kind of want to go in a little bit deeper into like what I think makes a good game. And one of those things is like, do you get this feeling, like I call it the high five factor? Is there ever going to be a moment in a game where you give yourself or another player like you just feel awesome that you did something cool, And Splendor does not ever hit that. And it doesn't do a lot of other things too, but that's one of the things it just gets a complete 0 on. You're never going to feel like you're never going to jump out of your seat and feel amazing because you just bought a tier 3 card.
Right.
It just doesn't do it for me.
Right.
So
yeah.
that, among other things, if it took less time, I would say, yeah, maybe it's worth looking at it. But
It would have a function.
There's other stuff.
As a filler.
Yeah, it would have a function.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Greg, what about you? What could it have done better?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Eric said. The word that I use for Splendor that means to what it means to me is it feels flat. And I don't know, maybe I just need a little more gizmo juice in my game and really wigs, moving around, if that makes any sense. It's there's just not enough going on. It just feels flat. Like this symbol subtracts from the symbol. There's not enough going on here. It's just too simple for me. I'm okay with games of this weight if, again, talking about what Eric said with the high five factor, if there's more player interaction. If I feel like I'm being able to use it to associate with my friends, I guess. But in this game, it doesn't even really have that. There's some player interaction. Like I said, there's more as you get better at the game, but it never feels like I'm just like outwitting people or I'm we're like beating each other up or anything. It just feels very stale, I guess, in that regard. And then finally, because I hate this, so this is one of my pet peeves. I'm always going to bring this out. The box for Splendor is way too big. Way too big. I'm going to send you a picture, Micah. There's a very famous picture in BGG where they show a person takes out like the poker chips and the cards, and it takes up like a tiny corner of the box.
Mm-hmm.
This totally could have been a very, very small box, and that would possibly maybe keep it on the shelf. But right now, it takes up the size of a full-size game, and it doesn't deserve that. It is not a full-size game. So yeah, I always bring that up when I see it because box size matters a lot to me.
Is that all that's in the box? Is cards and poker?
Cards and poker chips. That's it, and your instruction manual, of course. It comes in it has a nice insert, I guess.
Okay.
But insert is like 90% of the box. So.
Okay. All right. Okay, very good. Well, so final thoughts then on Splendor. Would you recommend it? And is there anything, who might you recommend it to? Or sounds like you guys are not super big on it. And anything else you want to say about it you have not yet said. Eric?
I would only recommend it as an app game. I really like the app, actually. I'll play that on my phone. I don't think I would recommend it to people just based off of the mechanics that it offers. It's just too light and takes too long. But there's something to be said for card games that are just filler type card games. But I think this one it's asking a little too much in off the clock. So if you want to play it, play the app version.
All right. So a good wait for when you're reading your phone on the toilet, basically, is what you're saying. Okay. What about you, Greg?
Actually, Eric, were you going to start doing ratings?
Yeah, was that a thing? Are you going to do that? What would you rate it?
Actually, my rating on this one is so low. I'm embarrassed to say.
No, I want to hear.
Well, my system is different than yours.
That's fine. Own it. Own it.
I rate this one. If I say this, I'm going to have to go back and change my entire BGG everything, because I've finally sat down and solidified what I think makes a good game and my rating system. This is a 3.
Out of
Wow.
how many? 10?
10.
That's low.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, I think it's an okay game. I'm not bored when I play this game. It's a decent game. But I think the curse with games of this weight, there's so many other games that play 4 players 30 minutes that I would just rather pull out. And actually, I said 6 earlier, but I don't know. Before I came into this, I was fighting between a 5.5 and a 6, and I always said that if I had to fight for the higher one, I'd go with the lower one. So I'm going to go 5.5, actually. That's my final rating on this. And 5.5 for me is where it's a game that I would just never pull out. But if someone else wanted to play it, I'd play. That's how my rating system works. So, yeah.
I think that's the lowest rating you've given to a game.
It is, yeah. I've had a few 6s, but I have no desire to pull this game. And a lot of people like this game. Okay, it's a popular game for a reason, I think. So don't take our word on this. You may enjoy this game, but for me, it's just not crunchy enough.
It feels better than a 3 to me, but when I put it on paper, I was like, no, I can't give it any more than
3's bold. I will say 3's bold. I reserve 3s for I would never want to play this game.
Yeah, you're not leaving a lot of room at the bottom.
I know, it's like, where's Monopoly and Munchkin?
Yeah.
I mean,
he gives Monopoly like an 8.5.
Yeah.
His favorite game of all time.
Right. Yeah. It sounds, the way you guys are describing it, again, I'm sort of giving you the way I'm parsing what you're saying. It sounds like the kind of game that maybe somebody could really enjoy if they played it, but once they start playing other games, would quickly move on.
And I'm dead serious about this. You know why I think this game is so popular? I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. I know. The poker chips. I 100% believe it's those poker chips. I think
there's a cool picture on the box. The picture
a cool
on the
picture.
box is
the artwork is
it's
fine.
going to be really cool. It's like this dude
the artwork is
who's
fine. But I think if it, instead of poker chips, it just came with little cardboard chits, I don't think this would be that popular. And I'm not calling people shallow.
And the box is big too, so they think there's a lot of game in there.
No, it's not shallow. I mean, it's a real, the sensation of playing the game is a real
of course,
part of it.
and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think I enjoy the game more because of them. Actually, I've mentioned that, so it's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think this is getting its popularity through its mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, so there you go. They did not like Splendor. So
are you going to ask if we're going to put this on the shelf or
so,
are we replacing?
Do you have to?
that's what I'm getting to. Technically, we have to decide whether Splendor goes on the 10-game shelf and kicks something else off or not. I mean, you didn't like it, but there were other games that you guys weren't crazy about either. Do you want to kick something else off, or?
Well, it's better than Ticket to Ride.
No, it's not. That's ridiculous. My goodness, you're trying to lose all credibility, Eric. I
wouldn't keep this one.
I wouldn't put it on the shelf. I mean, I wouldn't mind having another lighter game up there, but no, I wouldn't. Not this one.
Okay, so those are our thoughts on Splendor. If you completely disagree with Greg and Eric and you are outraged at their ridiculous rating of Splendor, please leave us a comment. What are we going to be looking at next time, guys?
Love letter. I suspect we're going to get a few hates on this video out of the 20 people that watch us. But...
Yeah. Right. Well,
there might be a few.
You've been itching to say something controversial and get a thumbs down, I know. So.
Well,
yes.
I feel like I want to say, next time maybe we can discuss why, what my rating system is, so that people will know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to certain things, and I can defend myself a little bit next time.
All right. Well.
Yeah, love letters next. So.
Yeah. All right. So next time, love letter and Eric's rating system broken down. Until then, this has been a piece of the action.
Just tough. I remember that name. Actually,
I remember. Well, I don't know. Do I?
And I think I can even see what she looks like in my head, but I can't put her in context of the episode.
I know there was something about merging with the companion. What was? Oh, the companion was the. Yeah, remember that episode where there's it's on the planet. There's a planet, and there. Oh, it was. who was the guy who invented warp drive?
Zephram Cochrane. That's right.
Zephram Cochrane was. And there
that's
was a
right.
companion was on that episode.
Yes,
was in that
and
episode.
I remember her walking into the cloud. That's right. That must be that. I agree.
That must be it.
Okay.
It's a stupid question because it's like random stuff or merging with the companion. So it must be that one. But let's see. Do you have any dissenters out there, Micah?
I don't have much dissent other than if it's not that one, my next guess I would say would be the transporter one. I think.
Transporters.
So
transporters.
They do use transporters a lot to fix diseases.
But
Yes,
doesn't
that's
that
true.
feel like more of a next generation thing?
It does, yes.
Yes, it
Fixing
does.
things with transporters or breaking things with transporters, that happened a lot in Next Generation.
What did TNG? Didn't they have like the biofilters? I don't know that.
TNG had biofilters.
I don't know they had biofilters were invented in the years of TOS. So
right, and
use them
they had
miraculously cure people.
They had lots of cool transporter hijinks on Next Generation, but I don't remember it so much in the original series.
Well, TOS split up Kirk into good and evil Kirk.
That's true, and actually, that was one of the best. That was one of the best episodes from TNG too. From the early seasons was where they split Riker. That was a cool episode.
No, that was late.
Was it late?
Yeah, because I'm watching season 6 right now. My watch through.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't got that part yet.
So there's the Riker one. There's the one with Barclay, right? Who's afraid of the transporter and he's seeing the monsters in it. There's the one where Scotty was stuck in the transport buffer for however long.
Yeah.
Or the opposite of the Kirk episode in Voyager where they merged two people.
They merged. Yeah, they merged two Vics. Yeah.
By the way, that actor was amazing. Whatever you think of the episode, that actor was amazing, I thought.
Okay,
anyways,
so
we're going with merging with the companion.
There we go.
Of course, that was the answer. Yes. So well done, everyone. Well done.
Yay us.